那在开场之前，先跟大家介绍一下，你们其中有一些人应该和我接过我的电话，和我聊过。那我是 VDA 的 Cheryl， 那今天呢会由我担任共同主持人的其中之一。那我们还有另外一位共同主持人。
Hello， 大家好，我是 Tina，我是助理主持。今天如果大家在讲座的过程中有任何问题的话，可以发出来，我都会记录下来，最后让我们的教练们统一回答的。谢谢大家今天来参加我们的讲座。
好，谢谢 Tina。好，那我们就要来直接开始了。Debate is a must-have。那个辩论的必要性呢，其实是非常重要的。那为什么孩子应该要学辩论？其实可以提升自己的自信啊。那像刚刚前面第一页那些教练们的影片里面所说的，那也可以保持那个学生的学术实力。那我们的学院呢，其实具备了非常强的队伍，那非常有实力的老师，以及呢非常严谨的课程。所以呢，这样子可以培育出非常热情的辩手，那可以让大家呢思考上面更加的犀利，更加的敏锐。这个其实是受用无穷的一个软实力。那等一下呢，我们就会请各位就是仔细听一下我们教练的分享。那希望呢大家可以在这场讲座之中呢获得些许的收获。好，那稍微跟大家介绍一下，这是今天的流程。那等一下呢，我们邀请到了5位非常资深、非常专业的 VDA 教练，那他们会跟我们分享大家就是在辩论过程中可能会遇到的一些挫折呀，或者是他们在辩论之中收取到的一些经验。好，那所以等一下呢，大家可以跟教练面对面，直接听取他们的个人经历。那再来呢，我们也会邀请到我们 VDA 的经理 Zoe 老师，那他会跟我们说，在现在呢，其实疫情还是相当严峻的情况下，我们要怎么在像这样子网课上课没有办法跟学生第一线接触的时候，要如何维持上课的品质？好，那最后呢，我们会有一个环节，就是 Q&A 的时间。所以呢，各位家长，如果等一下在讲座的过程当中有任何的疑问，可以先记下来。我们到最后一个环节，会由我们 staff 或者是教练给大家解答。好，那没有问题的话，我们就直接往下看。哦，对，这边呢也跟大家广告一下，这个星期六呢，其实还会有另外一场讲座。那这个是来自我们学生跟家长的分享。今天由教练跟大家分享自己的经验。那等到了周六，会有我们非常引以为傲的学生，以及在他们背后默默支持的家长，跟大家说明一下这一路走来在辩论路上的收获。所以呢，如果大家有兴趣的话，可以扫一下这边的2维码，进到那个我们的群里面。那到时候我们一样会把 Zoom 的链接放在里面。好，来，那我们接下来就要来介绍我们非常引以为傲的教练群。那这几位呢是今天来到我们现场的教练。首先介绍一下第一位呢是我们的辩论主管 Bryan。好，那 Bryan 呢，他非常的资深，他除了有20几年跨越美国、加拿大的辩论经验之外呢，他在美国呢，其实也获得了优秀教师的称号。那他的本科系是政治科学，那后来拿到了国际事务的硕士。所以其实在学术的基底上面，那还有他的那个辩论经验上面，都给了他非常足够的那个底蕴。然后呢，他也是一个非常受学生喜爱的教练。那Bryan 在现场的话，可以跟我们打声招呼吗 ？Hi Bryan。
Yeah, hi everybody. Had myself on.
OK， 好，那等一下呢，我们会有一个环节是让 Bryan 跟大家分享，我这边先做一下介绍。好，那我们接下来介绍一下下一位 Adrian 呢是我们 VDA 的主教练，那他同时呢也是墨西哥国家队的教练。这个国家队是什么概念呢？其实就像是奥运会，在辩论界的奥运会一样，那每一个国家呢都会派一个队伍出去。那 Adrian 不仅是国家代表，他也是国家代表的教练，所以呢，他的那个辩论的经验、带队经验也非常的丰富。那也是个受学生信任的好老师。Adrian 在现场吗 ？Hi Adrian，you want to say hi to everyone?
Hi everybody. Hope everybody's doing all right. Looking forward to talking to you.
好，那我们谢谢 Adrian。那等一下也会有时间给他分享一下。那再来呢是我们的 Ash 教练。Ash 教练是我们VDA 的副主教练，他对辩论非常非常的有热情。然后呢，他其实在过去2年呢参加的辩论赛全都拿了第1名，是个实力非常坚强，然后对辩论非常非常热爱的教练。那等一下我们也会请他分享一下。Hello Ash, are you there?
Yeah, how's it going? I hope everyone's having a good morning.
好，那我们感谢 Ash。好，那介绍完前面3位教练，我们接下来看一下。好，下一位教练呢是 Evelyn。Evelyn 呢也是我们 VDA 的 coach。那她现在呢，同时也担任了那个 UBC 的辩论社的社长。所以呢，很多 UBC 相关的辩论赛都是她在背后统筹帷幄。所以呢，其实组织能力非常的强。那我们也欢迎一下 Evelyn。Evelyn 在这里吗？
Hello, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today.
好，谢谢 Evelyn。好，那再来呢，下一位教练是 Tina。Tina 呢，她以前呢就是我们 VDA 的学生，然后呢，经过了非常认真的学习之后呢，一路过关斩将，然后慢慢的升华自己的辩论能力，所以现在呢，已经是一位独当一面的教练。那他今年呢就要升大学，即将进入 UBC 就读。而且呢，因为辩论的关系，其实他的那个履历呢，在当初面试的时候给了他非常大的优势，申请的所有学校都上了。那我们等一下也会请 Tina 分享一下他从学员变成教练一路过来的心路历程。Hi Tina.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Nice to see you.
好 ，Thank you Tina。OK， 那他同时也是那个他们高中的模联的社长，还有教练。好，那最后一位呢，介绍一下我们写作相关课程的 Zoe 老师。那他呢，同时也是我们的经理。所以呢，他除了有非常的丰富的行政经验之外呢，他更有9年以上的教学经验。那针对不同年龄的学生，那不同程度的学生，他其实都非常非常的有那个掌握以及把握。所以呢，等一下我们也会请Zoe老师从那个资深教练，那从那个辩论写作，从写作方面的这个课程来切入，那谈一下在这样子严峻的疫情下，我们可以怎么去培养学生的学术。好，Hi Zoe，Are you there？ 哦，他可能把那个音量关起来了。好，不用担心，等一下呢会有一段非常就是充实的时间给他发挥。好，那以上呢介绍就是我们今天来这边参加的教练们。那其实我们优秀的队伍里面还有非常非常多优秀的教练，像是Nathan、Alex、Yan、Judy、Bobo、Yuki、Bishop 还有 Diggory。那这些教练呢，他们的经验非常丰富，像里面就包含了去年斯坦福的冠军，那也有柬埔寨国家队的队员在里面。那这些教练呢，其实跟今天与会的教练一样，下个学期都有开新课程。所以呢，如果大家等会有兴趣的话，我们也可以看一下他们的介绍。好，那这些教练们风格不一，但是都非常的专业。那相信每一位孩子都可以找到最适合自己个性的教练。好。来，那接下来呢，介绍我们一位同事，她是我们 VDA 的教育顾问 Vanessa。那在现在这个比较难直接接触到学生，面对面接触到学生的时候呢，有一个像这样的桥梁来帮助孩子、老师、家长之间做沟通是非常重要的。那我们等一下呢，可以请 Vanessa 来分享一下。他的这个职位呢，会帮助学生哪一些部分？那也请他介绍一下自己。那请问 Vanessa 已经在线上了吗？
嗨，在哪？
嗨 Vanessa，
你好，大家好。
好，那请 Vanessa 给我们稍微介绍一下您自己好吗？
好的，大家好，欢迎来参加 VDA 今天主教这些大咖老师们的讲座。我呢，就是因为咱们的教练全部都是讲英文，好多家长跟教练沟通起来还是有一定的困难，所以我就起一个桥梁的作用。如果家长对孩子的学习有什么问题，可以通过我呢跟那个教练们沟通，然后咱们共同帮助孩子得到最好的学习。还有就是大家有关学校的选课啦， 还有申请私校、申请大学等等这方面的问题，都可以和我交流。好，今天咱们以教练的讲解如何进行培训为主，之后有什么问题咱们继续沟通。谢谢大家。
好，谢谢 Vanessa。好 ，Vanessa 的经验非常丰富，不管在中外呢，其实都有非常多的对于大学申请啊，或者是选课相关的研究。那大家有任何问题的话，都可以随时咨询。好，那我们介绍完今天与会的教练及老师，来看一下我们学院的丰功伟业吧。好，来，我们学院呢，其实过去5年来已经收了1000多位的学生。那不管是帮助他们从内向的个性渐渐发展出自己的辩论风格，那也有也有帮助学生往更加辩论竞赛的方面去发展。所以呢，过去5年我们其实已经培育了1000多名的学生，而且在2019年这一年，光是在北美就拿了140以上的奖项。那再来呢，我们学院其实也是第一，而且唯一一个在斯坦福 Tournament 拿到冠军的队伍，是加拿大的冠军，所以这真的是非常不容易的事情。2位当初的辩手，现在也都是我们独当一面的教练。那最后呢，其实我们也有提供辩论的学分，那我们也是在 BC 省唯一而且第一将辩论课纳入学校学分的机构，所以大家到时候如果有兴趣，也可以跟我们的办公室咨询。好。那接下来就到了大家非常期待的教练分享时间。那首先呢，我们想要来欢迎我们的辩论主管 Bryan 跟大家分享一下自己的辩论心路历程。So, could you please share your experience to everyone, Bryan? It's your time right now. 我们欢迎一下 Bryan.
Thank you. Sorry, I had myself on mute again. Yeah, good morning, everyone. Yeah, thank you for taking some time out of your day to join us. I think as the theme of this is sort of like, why is debate kind of a must-have? Why is it essential? Yeah, I want to share a little bit of my story in debate and how it's affected my life and those of all the students that I've taught over the years, and why I've enjoyed debate and think it's so central to a good education. I actually began not as a debate student, but just as an idiot freshman in high school who my coach, or at the time was an English teacher, heard me talking with a friend and said, hey, you need to debate, like come to practice this afternoon. And so I had no idea why I was there. I was just sort of like, okay, well, I'm being forced to come to a meeting. And so we practiced a few speeches, went to a tournament, and like the video said, I believe it was Yuki that said in the video, like, you aren't going to win every tournament. And that was certainly true for our first tournament. We went and we were absolutely demolished. I think we won 2 rounds the entire tournament. But just, learn. But the point was whenever we finished a round and had no clue what to do, we would go talk with our coach and talk with our teammates and be like, hey, I don't know what this means. And so it forced us to have discussions about big things that were happening in the world. In fact, in 1995, my very first topic was about U.S.-China relations. And so we spent the entire year working on U.S.-China relations, and we talked a lot about what was going on in the world at the time. We talked about Three Gorges Dam. We talked about the transition away from Deng Xiaoping. We talked about, and as a 13, 14-year-old, we were, having conversations about things that were way above our heads and having to try to understand them as best we could. And it sort of forced us to go research and find out what we could about the world. And at first the motivation was largely external. It was a coach telling us, you need to know this. But one of the things that debate does that I think no other area of education does is it puts the responsibility for learning purely on the student. It takes this extrinsic outside motivation and tells the student, like, if you want to succeed, if you want to have a conversation or a debate with someone about a very complex issue. Right now we're studying US medical coverage for our fall topic, and that's incredibly complex. Then you have to dive into it. You have to really be like, what's the problem? What are the potential solutions? What's worked in different countries? And instead of having a teacher just sit there and say, here's the answer, and here's what happened in history, and here's what happened, or here's the math answer, It wasn't this outside teacher. It was the students and me at the time and our students now teaching themselves and going and finding answers on their own. So why is that important? I think, so in the BC curriculum, the new curriculum for BC, there's a huge focus put on self-directed learning, on the student themselves finding the motivation to find answers. How do you think critically about something? What are the questions? Are they good questions? What are potential ways I could prove or disprove my theory? What are some ways that I could know what good outcomes might look like? What historically has happened? And debate does all of that. It asks students to take a complex issue, break it down into its components, and then critically think about what each of those components means. And I think no matter the debate topic, it has students engage with that. So psychologically, you're everywhere from 6th grade all the way to 12th grade, they're in a developmental phase where they're trying to make a lot of things that are extrinsic motivations intrinsic. So they're learning how to become independent. They're learning, students at this age are trying to figure out who they are. What do they understand about the world? What do they believe? What do they stand for? What are ways that they can do things on their own without their parents' help or without their teachers' help? And so it's a life skill. It's having to grow in a way that where they can be independent and be successful at being independent in the college and university life, and then as adults. So I think debate does that and if I can skip to the community-oriented and fun part, I think that's the most important part about debate, is it's fun. It's about you and your friends exploring something that most people who are 13 to 18 or younger, 12, 11, in that age range aren't really looking at what's going on in the world in that level of depth. And so as coaches, our job is to help explore that. Okay, so we need to understand a bit of history here. What's the history? We need to understand a bit of political science. What's the political science? A little bit of tech and science. What's going on in the tech world? And so understanding all of these things and then bringing them together to craft an argument. And then be able to communicate that to someone effectively, which is a critical life skill, being able to communicate our ideas in an effective way. So I think the fun piece is number one. But then the second thing is it's academically rigorous. It really dives deep on the academic skills needed. So when you start, you always start by having a method for critical thinking. What are the harms of this problem? What's the problem with the status quo or the way things are now? What are solutions, the potential solutions? What are the impacts of those solutions? Who does it affect and how? Then after that, after the questioning phase is done, we go into a research phase where students have to go and they learn how to use research skills. Is this a good site? Is it a bad site? Is this a source that I want to use in my argumentation? What does it say? Why does it say that is true? Then the writing phase, putting it together in a structured essay format so that they can, and that's applicable to literally every field they're ever going to go into or any class they're ever going to be in. And then finally communicating it, which is, I think, one of the most important pieces of that puzzle is, can you talk about things in a way that's intelligent and that allows you to reflect on what other people think as well. So I think that's very important, not just for their personal growth, but I think also for university applications, for job applications. There was a person who was on our board of directors with the Houston Urban Debate League who is a policymaker in Washington, D.C., and he said he only hires debaters because he said that he's found that debaters are people who, if you tell them to do something they don't know how to do, they will figure out how to do it. They have the critical thinking skills, the research skills, and the ability to develop a position out of nothing. And so that's one of the things that we're training, that regardless of what field they go into in university, is a life skill. It's what we used to call portable skills. You can take them from debate and apply them into whatever you go into. And so, and developing those internal motivations is so important, because once a student leaves home, there's no one to force them to go to class. There's no one to force you to go to a university class or to do well in a job or to do the things that you need to do to succeed in a job. And so having an intrinsic motivation, I think, in developing that sense of agency is incredibly important. So how do we do that? So I already mentioned kind of the levels here, but that's the academic level, the academic rigor that we look for at VDA. Is the academic development starts with the critical thinking and research interplay. Are they able to develop questions and then find answers and then criticize those answers in a way that they can figure out what's good information and what's potentially information that's irrelevant or manipulative, and be able to distill that into a position. And then be able to write an argument and put a position forward, and then be able to communicate about it in a way that allows them to at least determine like what a mutually agreeable position might be, or why one position might be better than another position. So our model at VDA is to sort of apply that systematic way of thinking, that critical application of their knowledge to all of the debates that we do, to all of the speeches they write, to any exercise that we do. And so that level of rigor is something that we really focus on in the classroom. Tournaments provide that kind of like motivation. I like to think of it as trophy equity, that a trophy is nothing more than just a motivation. But what the point is not to win trophies. The point is to have a motivation that they're aiming for. They want to win a trophy. Somebody wants to be recognized for a wonderful speech. And then all the work that comes in between that and a success at a tournament, whatever that looks like, is just a motivator. The second thing is the rigor we now have a 4-credit option with BC, with the BC ministry to offer students credit on their curriculum. That is important because it does have all of this rigor applied. So all of the work that would need to be done in a classroom to get approval to offer credit for it has been done. That work is still in progress. We're actually still continuing to develop our curriculum and build it in ways that give students lots of ways to learn the things, because we recognize that students are different types of learners. That some students are inherently motivated by political questions and love debating politics. Some aren't. And so how do we, one of the things that we're really focusing on is how do we develop a curriculum that allows multiple ways to approach a question, allows them to debate things that are outside of a normal debate room, questions of philosophy, questions of math, questions of science, things that are not what you would think of when you think of debate. And then also allow them as much variety as possible once they learn the concepts to compete. We just finished up last weekend an in-house tournament. So for younger students and students that are just learning their skills, we have kind of a VDA in-house tournament that we've offered, at least since I joined back in March. We've had 3 of them. And that's opportunities for students to build their skills with other students who are just getting started. And then on top of that, once they are ready to compete and go to other tournaments, we compete on multiple circuits. So we've competed, and I know coaches at VDA we've all competed in the Canadian circuits, the US circuit. I've also taken students to tournaments in Japan and China. And so there are circuits all around the world that debate in different styles. And so we really value that diversity of being able to compete. And every format of debate offers its own individual strengths and weaknesses. And so having a well-rounded debate experience where we can try out different formats and have coaches who have expertise in that format, which leads to the third point about having experienced coaches. All of the coaches at VDA have both debate experience and now many of them have multiple years of teaching and coaching experience as well. And so one of the things you really want when you're looking for a debate coach is, are they able to, do they understand what's going on in the debate world? Do they understand what's happening with debate, like not just debate teaching, but debate application at tournaments? To know kind of what the cutting edge arguments are, what are things that that people are really working on, and that provides more opportunities to the students. And so VDA coaches, because of that, either as a part of the UBC Debate Club or coaches who have worked online with American debate experience or otherwise, have application from the tournaments that they themselves are attending and are able to teach students what's kind of happening on the circuit, so to speak. So I feel that if there's one takeaway though from anything I'm saying, it's that I truly believe that debate offers more diversity in instruction than any other subject. I also am a certified history teacher, and I love history. It's one of my favorite, that's all I ever read. But the problem with a history class is you're really teaching about what happened. There's no real, like, yeah, there are lessons to take from it, but that's not being applied to what's happening in the world. It's not being, it's not current events oriented. It's not, you know, if you pick up the newspaper or see something happening in the world, you can, you know, it doesn't provide that application. Debate does, and also provides the historical context. And same with any other field, that it's so much more broad and gives so much more academic application than anything that I've ever done. And that's one of the reasons I feel that it's an absolute must-have in an educational portfolio. Dan, I'd be happy to answer any questions at the end of the presentation as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Bryan. 好，那刚刚那个 Bryan 跟我们分享了一下哈，他其实在辩论过程中，他也不是从很小的时候就开始学，那可能到了大学开始，那他的指导老师让他就是试着去探究就是辩论的过程，他才开始接触。那其实我们也是希望说，像辩论这种是学生本位的学习。那学生一旦掌握了这样的知识、这样子的训练之后呢，接下来他就可以发展出独立，就是他自己看待世界的视角。所以其实我们就是非常的鼓励学生来发展这样的思辨性思维。那感谢 Bryan 的分享。那我们等一下最后还会有一个就是 Q&A 的时间，大家如果有问题可以直接提出，到时候再直接提出。好，那我们接下来要介绍下一位教练。好，下一位教练就是那个我们Adrian， 就是我们的主教练。那他其实英语跟西语的辩论都掌握得非常好。那我们来请他分享一下他的辩论历程。Hi, Adrian.
Hello, everybody. So I'll assume that means it's my turn to speak.
Yep.
I'd like to start by telling you all a little bit about me, because I understand that some of you guys have not met me yet. So let's get started. My name is Adrian, and I've been debating since 2013. So it's a pretty long debating career, and I think I've learned enough lessons that have made me a better coach because of that. I want to talk a little bit about the difference between who I was in 2013 versus who I am now in 2020. Because in 2013, I was a shy kid. I got my first smartphone ever, or I think it was just the computer lab. I don't remember. The point is, it was the year that I finally made a Facebook account. I was so excited. And next thing you know, I'm just getting slammed with a stream of information that is so intense. I had never seen anything like it. Just 5 minutes in Facebook, and I'm already seeing a post that a friend of mine made about the Israel-Gaza situation, defending the Israeli military. And then immediately after, I'm seeing a post from a friend of mine who happens to be from like an Arab country. They're living in the US, and they comment about how Gaza needs to be free. And then going forward, there's a heated debate in another post about immigration in the United States. And my tiny little 15-year-old brain is blowing up because everybody has a point to make, but nobody is convincing me. Like, everybody has a different position, everybody has a different opinion. And when I tried to research about it, it got worse, because then there's Google, and then there's millions of possible sources that I could be using to justify either position. And then I joined debate. I think my first debate ever, I didn't know what I was doing. I was so scared. But time after time, I kept practicing. And I think the skill that I learned, the most important skill that I learned, is the ability to see an ocean of information and be able to handpick what I think is more reliable, what I think makes more sense, but from both sides, both in favor or against something, and kind of make that into an understanding of an issue in my head. And honestly, that was probably the most amazing skill that I developed because of debate. Because now in 2020, when I'm doing an essay for university, or when I'm practicing for a debate tournament of my own, or maybe when I'm helping my students go to a debate tournament, I've been able to actually use the debate skills to learn more about a given issue, be able to understand why somebody thinks what they think and where they're coming from, and be able to understand why something is fair, why it is not, why it should be done, why it should not. I think one of the topics that helped me the most was free trade. Because being from Mexico, free trade and immigration and borders, they're such a big issue that I was able to view the world through debate and learn more about how borders work, learn more about how international relations work, learn more about how policies work, and actually, be able to discuss it. And the best thing is that I was able to discuss it eloquently, like an adult would. And that's something that I remember somebody mentioned. Oh, you sound so smart for your age. I'd just say, thanks, it's the debating. I really think that debate has shaped me into somebody that can learn more about the world and can talk about the world in a more effective way. And genuinely, that's the biggest difference between 2013 and 2020. It's not necessarily that my brain changed or that I became a more mature human. Like, that's just part of life. But the most important thing that I got from debate is the ability to view the world through debate, to analyze critically different positions, disagreements, anything that happens, and be able to understand the different reasons behind an issue. So I want to talk to you a little bit about my debate career and how I got to the point that I am today. So I started debating in Mexico. So I was actually born and raised in Mexico, and I started debating in grade 9, and my first tournament ever was in world school style, meaning that my first speech ever was an 8-minute speech. And here I am, a little 15-year-old kid who's never spoken in public before, being asked to speak for 8 minutes straight, pretty much uninterrupted. I was terrified. But from that to winning my first tournament, I remember my coach at the time, who coincidentally was also, like, his name is Mark Weber, so it's pretty funny that I'm now working with another Weber. Anyways, he came to me after that and said, don't worry, keep going, stay hungry. He knew that I wanted to get good. He just told me stay motivated. And I never understood what he meant until years later when I'm in his position, coaching other students. What he meant to say is, I can't win a tournament for you. You're the one that's going to make the decision that this is something that you want. And I think when that clicked in my second or third year of debating, pretty sure it was my second year of debating that it clicked, that I was like, oh wait, this is up to me. I'm the one that needs to do the research. I'm the one that needs to do the work and improving my style, my delivery. I'm the one that needs to actually write down feedback and keep in mind what my judges are saying while I'm losing rounds. So I started doing that. That clicked. I got hungry. I got hungry for that success, that motivation that Bryan talked about. And I ended up winning my first local tournament in Mexico. And despite winning, that was not enough because I knew there was a world out there and I was just a big fish in a small pond. So I went to my first international tournament. I went to the US National Debate Championships. And I was able to walk away from that as a second best speaker. And despite that, I was still not satisfied. So I went to the Pan American Debating Championship. And after that, I was not satisfied. I went to the World Schools Debating Championship. And after that, I was not satisfied. Because what I learned is that debate, more than just the competition, was the material that you learned from that, how much knowledge you had. Because each of those tournaments came to me with a different prepared topic. It came to me with a different range of topics. It was a different challenge. And at some point, it became not about winning. It was, I'm going to use the skills that I've learned so far to beat this challenge. It was a new game. So eventually, my latest tournament was actually this December, where I ended up spending New Year's in Thailand debating at the World Universities Debating Championship. And it was a wonderful experience. And I think one of the important things that I want to cover here is that all of these tournaments have given me a new challenge, which brings me to the last section, coaching debate. Every one of these challenges taught me a lesson, and I learned it the hard way. I learned these lessons by standing up in a podium and being so scared to speak that I can only cover 2 out of 5 minutes. I learned the hard way. The same thing at WUDC, the most challenging, biggest tournament in the world. I went against teams that knew more and were more prepared than me. I also went against teams that were not that ready. But the important thing is that I got the feedback from the best debaters in the world, so you don't have to. So that I can then come back to VDA, come back to Vancouver, and share all of those skills, whether it's in PF and BP and WSDC and CNDF, all of those formats that I've grown to practice throughout my long debate career. I go to these tournaments and I learn so much, and my goal is I want to help you learn from my mistakes. And I think so far I've been able to do so. Because so far I've been able to have debaters like Sam and Frank were actually in my screen, who by their first term, they were already starting to do skills that they wouldn't have seen by themselves, but it was really impressive to see them start to go to tournaments at such a young age. And I really am happy to be able to share some of my own experiences with them and then have them apply them at tournaments. And the same thing goes for all the debaters. The competitive success is one of the most important motivators in debate. What I've noticed is that not only is it a motivator, it is one of the, debate is one of the fairest sports because the success that you have is directly related to the work that you put in. I can give you all the tools that you want. And my favorite thing is seeing students not just win tournaments, but they themselves pick up the tools and that pushes them towards success. They're the ones that are driven and they're the ones that are motivated. I can help them, but at the end of the day, it's their success. And that's probably the best thing of this experience. The other thing that happens is that whether or not students win rounds, they learn how to think critically and evaluate different positions. They learn how to see the world and they learn how to understand the world through debate. And that's probably the most fantastic aspect of this activity, where not only do you get students that are motivated and working hard, you get students that are genuinely interested in what's happening and why it's happening. And hopefully we can continue doing so because the learning that debate offers is amazing. All right, that's all I have for you all. I'm happy to answer any questions later on.
Okay, thank you very much, Adrian. 好，那刚刚在那个 Adrian 教练的分享之下，我们知道说他在2013年到2020年之间有了多大的转变。那我其实还蛮难相信他以前是个害羞的孩子。那其实在他第一母语不是英语的情况下，那他从西语起家，慢慢借由不同的辩论赛磨练，那每一次挑战呢，其实都淬炼出到最后变成他现在的成就。所以其实呢，如何去思考，如何去不断的精进自己是非常重要的。那我们其实有很多学生，他们家长很担心说，那怎么办？我孩子刚过来，他们可以做辩论吗？不用担心，其实真的练习就会达到就是你的要求。那不断的练习，其实可以帮助学生不断的提升。那最后呢，成长成更好的自己。好，我们谢谢 Adrian 的分享。那接下来呢，我们很荣幸的请到我们的 Ash 老师。Hi Ash, could you share your experience with everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. I will try to keep mine a little more short and sweet since I feel like Bryan and Adrian, thank you both. You covered a lot of stuff. I think that's really valuable about debate, and sharing your experiences as well are very interesting. So I'm going to introduce myself. I'll talk a bit about what my kind of goals as a coach is. And then I'm going to talk about some of the general benefits of debate, aside from the ones we kind of already heard about. So my name's Ash, as you guys know. I just recently graduated from the University of Alberta with a degree in environmental studies. It's very interdisciplinary. It's all over the place. So I got a wonderful opportunity to be able to research areas of art, science, very exciting stuff. I've been to so many tournaments. It's excessive, perhaps, but it's good fun. It's something that we can't stop going to. It's something that's so much fun and really exciting. So in terms of actually debate though, my debate journey started in 2014. And so that was the first year that I started university. So unlike a lot of other people, at VDA, I never actually had the opportunity to do debate in either junior high, high school, or elementary. My debate career did start in university. And that was a bit of a different experience, I think, than a lot of other people have when they do it through school. I apologize if there is a loud noise in my background. But yes, so I started doing it in university, and it's a different experience. But the biggest thing I noticed about it was that for the first time in my life, I was probably the dumbest person in the room, or at least I felt like it. And that never happened to me. That never happened to me in any high school class I was in. I was always kind of bored and kind of underwhelmed by the kind of content that we were covering. And that was really rewarding. That was weird. It was uncomfortable, but it was a good uncomfortable. It was the kind of uncomfortable that tells you that you need to keep growing. Give me 5 seconds to shut my window. I feel like that beeping is probably coming through on the mic. Can someone give me a nod if it is? Yeah, I'm gonna shut my window. All right. I hope it stops beeping. Ah, great. What good timing. But anywho, yeah, I was like the dumbest person in the room. That was really crazy. I didn't know how to feel about that, but I was also ultimately very excited, and it was still very rewarding. So what that meant was now I was motivated to actually learn more and improve, right? I was motivated because of the people around me. These were all really, really smart people. They were incredibly articulate. They had somehow the ability to see and read the news and decide they understood or had an opinion about what was happening in the world. I thought that that was fascinating. I felt like a lot of people in my life did that. A lot of adults did that. A lot of teachers did that in a way that wasn't really satisfying. And I think like the experience Adrian talked about really resonated with me, where I'm like, I'm not really convinced by this. These are very half-baked opinions. Nobody's finding a place of like shared agreement, and kind of being disingenuous about the merits of the other side. I'd love to hear a good convincing argument that takes down even the best arguments heard on the other side. And so it wasn't until I, again, joined debate and these people were having conversations like outside of the debate room about world history and about current events, and coming to these very interesting conclusions, having very strong opinions, and able to like articulate even poetically their perspectives on the world. And that motivated me and brought me forward because I wanted to participate in that. I saw these people as role models. I wanted to be like that. It was really, really impressive. And when you sit in that space of discomfort and kind of embarrassment and kind of awkwardness, that's awesome. And I think that every student should embrace that, because I think that like not knowing is fine. That's why we're here. That's why we want to teach you, is that we assume you're not coming into this necessarily already insanely articulate, already insanely confident, already incredibly well-versed. You're probably not. And that's a more than okay thing. In fact, I strongly encourage it, because that was me for a very long time. I had virtually no interest in politics until I got into debate, and experienced loss after loss after loss after loss after loss after loss. So that again also motivated me to really sit back and consider why I was getting these losses, taking the feedback of really intelligent people around me that I really respected, right? There's nothing more rewarding than someone you see and look up to as a good debater, giving you this kind of advice that, you know, they can only really get through their own experiences, having gone through it themselves as well, and then you can pass that on, which is I think what my experience looks a lot like after having then debated now since 2014. I did a combination of competitive debate. I did a lot of judging. I think that that's something that's very valuable as well. And yeah, that's a very, very long debate career, and I do not think I am done by a long shot. So I decided that this was like a really valuable skill that I have, that I want to share with others. And I think the experiences I have and the kind of person debate has made me incredibly important, because it's, again, made me more interested in learning. It's motivating, it's exciting, it's fun to be able to articulate something I read in the news. I don't think anybody else except for debaters can relate to that experience in the slightest. But that's really great. And I think I'm more empathetic. You have to step outside yourself, step outside your perspective, and take on the perspectives of others. If we're talking about a policy like welfare, we might want to step outside ourselves as people who aren't on welfare and think, okay, if I was a welfare recipient, how would I feel about this? What would I think about this, right? And so doing so in a way that is like respectful and insightful is very difficult, but I think it fosters empathy, and I think it fosters a kindness. And I think that that fosters a more holistic approach to policy that, again, you don't often see in university students, let alone in high school or junior high. So again, I wish I had something like VDA when I was younger, because I think I would have just absolutely loved it. That said, I should say I was never someone who was afraid of public speaking in the first place, though. And there definitely are people who are, right? I think that a lot of you have kids that might be a little shy or a little scared of public speaking. And I think that that's okay. And some of you will have kids that are like very excited, want to talk, have a lot to say, and are super confident, right? Either way, I think that they will learn a lot through debate in channeling that energy, becoming more articulate, and turning their ideas into something moldable, that's convincing, that's fun, right? And having a good time in the classroom. So I think that regardless of the kind of kid, they will probably have a good time. There will be something that interests them or motivates them. So that's why I think I ultimately enjoy coaching debate, right? I think it's really rewarding when I see students grow. So I actually only have a couple goals. So when I'm coaching, I either say that if my student is either having fun, if they learn something, if they develop some confidence, if they do any of those things, I have done my job. And I know that I succeed every time, right? We always have a bit of fun in the classroom. And I think that too, with the online format, it's been a bit of a challenge, like how to transition the in-person classroom to online. And I know that can be a bit of a worry in terms of how we do that. And I definitely have been learning a lot in the process along the way, but I found that there's a lot of opportunity in it too. Insofar as I've been integrating a lot more multimedia into the classroom. Also in terms of the homework, I'm introducing videos, interactive work, documents that people can actually send back. We're working with data sometimes. So it's a really multidimensional format, which means I can like rely on the technology that we're using, and we can use that in the classroom, as well as research skills that before they'd have to do as homework. Now I can actually do it with them in real time. I can share my screen. I can show how to search, how to do keyword searches, how to cite. So those kinds of skills that oftentimes, again, you would need rigorous classes to do. You need to do it on your own. We can now do very, very easily online. It's so accessible. And I think that that's something very unique about COVID, if there is anything that is a silver lining to take from this. And I think that too, I really value this like a network that we've built. The network of VDA, of fellow debaters. While you're in it, you're gonna meet a lot of other people. I'm talking to the students now, a lot of people like yourself that are interested in actually having conversations about policy, or even having meta discussions about the ethics of like us watching YouTube or playing video games. And yes, there's debates about that, so many that are interesting and relevant to modern policy and policymakers today. So you end up connecting with a lot of people around you intellectually when it comes to tournaments as well, like emotionally. These become lifelong friends and people you care about. The majority of my friends are debaters. I think that they're just great people that I can have a great conversation with no matter what. And again, like debaters are also more often than not people that are incredibly motivated, and they end up going to amazing places, whether it be comedy or law school or med school. There's so many different fields that debaters get into. So you can have this network, and with, again, debate being online, it's international. So you can develop these international connections that might have not been available before because it's expensive to travel. That said, in debate, you can develop this amazing international network, which again, you can use for the rest of your life if you want to move, if you want to travel, but also it's just incredible for career opportunities and networking. The last thing I'll say about the kind of general benefits of debate, but I know I've talked a lot generally about it, is that, again, I think that it fosters this intellectual curiosity. It makes you, I think I really like the point Bryan made about intrinsic motivation. It makes you motivated to search for information on your own, to run new, unique cases. We'll run and talk a lot about the same topics again and again, but the reason it works for years and years and years is because I really value intellectual creativity in the classroom. I really value students taking risks, being curious and trying to apply what they know into debate. I think it also, again, makes them more confident. Generally, when you can articulate your ideas, I think that's incredibly empowering to just talk about what you think, or just be able to hold a conversation on your own respectfully with another person and see eye to eye with them. I think that's incredibly valuable too. And I think just, yeah, this general knowledge you get. I'm having conversations with like 12-year-olds about how the ideal insurance policy would work. I didn't expect in 2020 this is what my life would look like, but it is. And I think that's so cool that I can sit down with literally kids and talk to them as if they were adults about policy that most other adults don't understand. So I think that in a huge sense, this is a massive responsibility. It's also a lot of fun joking around with kids. They have an amazing sense of humor. And I think at the end of the day, I value that we are basically raising future leaders. And I'll leave you with that.
Hey, thank you very much. 好，谢谢那个 Ash 老师刚刚的分享。那刚刚跟那个Adrian 老师不一样的是呢，他其实小时候就不是一个害羞的孩子，他其实是非常外向活泼的。那他直到大学才开始第一次接触辩论，而且觉得辩论就是相见恨晚，恨不得自己可以早一点开始学习。那他其实刚刚也有提到一个非常重要的观念，就是role model 嘛。所以其实在孩子的成长过程当中呢，如果有一个可以让他去遵循的 崇拜的对象，那其实他会有更多的动力去完成一些事情。那其实辩论也是就是在培养学生对于任何事情都会有一个动力，想要去发现更多，那想要去认识更多。所以其实这个是还蛮重要的，不管是在就像一开始那个Bryan 教练有跟我们分享，不管是在求职，不管在哪个领域，其实这些主动性都会影响到你的一生。好，那非常感谢 Ash 老师的分享。那我们接下来欢迎下一位教练 Evelyn。Evelyn 是我们 UBC 辩论社的社长，那我们请她来跟大家说一下她的经历。Hi Evelyn, could you share your experience to everyone?
Are you guys able to hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Hi guys. I'll start by sort of introducing myself. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about my personal relationship and journey within debate and some of the benefits that I think students can gain from this. And then as president of the UBC Debate Society, I also want to talk to you guys a little bit about the tournaments that we host for our high schoolers at UBC so that you guys can get a bit of an idea of what the tournament experience can be like for your students and what our goals ultimately are at these events. So, hello, my name is Evelyn. I am going into my final year as a student at UBC, majoring in psychology and minoring in law and society. When I think about my personal relationship with debate, I definitely agree with all of the points that have been brought up by our speakers so far in terms of some of the academic benefits that you can gain from debate. Ever since I joined debate as an extracurricular activity, it's definitely changed the way that I interact with sources that I read online or just information that I gather from other people, the way that I'm able to speak to others, both presentationally and interpersonally. But I think for me, the biggest impact that debate has had for my personal life is in terms of my character growth and personal relationship with public speaking and sort of this shyness that I used to have as a child. I really liked when Ash brought up the point that they were never really afraid of public speaking to begin with, because I definitely was. If any of you guys have children that are a bit shy or afraid of public speaking in general, I literally was that kid. I was so afraid to speak in front of the class. I was the kind of person that only had like 1 or 2 friends because I didn't like speaking to other people. Like, I am an entirely different person now than I was back when I was in middle or high school. And I think genuinely a really huge factor in that was me joining debate. And I think that's for a couple of different reasons. I think that firstly, debate obviously provides you with a lot of really concrete skills in terms of your ability just to improve speaking on the whole. So I don't think that this is just simply limited to a competitive environment in terms of giving a speech at a tournament. It also genuinely provides you with a lot of the foundational skills in terms of presentational speaking that you can apply to all sorts of aspects in life. So whether that includes giving a presentation in school or talking in a job interview, or even just meeting new people and speaking to others, suddenly you have the skills and the confidence to be able to do that a lot more successfully and a lot more eloquently. But I think also a really unique thing that comes from debate is the community of people that are there and sort of the skills and the relationships that you can gain from the individuals that you meet there. Debate is really a very tight-knit community, and everyone is very supportive and very encouraging in terms of helping you to improve in your like presentational speaking and in terms of your personal growth. It's really interesting because people like Ash and Adrian, some of the like first people that I met when I joined the UBC Debate Society, really are people that helped me out. Like, a lot of the things that I know today are because of these individuals. So shout out to you. Thank you. But these are the sorts of individuals that you really do get a chance to meet when you join debate, when you join these sorts of classes. And being able to speak with peers and compete along peers that have the same goals as you in terms of getting better at speaking, learning more about the world. When you're surrounded by a community of like-minded individuals, it really does foster your own personal growth at a really accelerated rate. And so the skills that you get from debate are widely applicable to all sorts of aspects of your life. And I think that's something that really changed for me. So a lot of people that meet me in university, when they hear hear that I was this really shy, quiet kid, they often get really surprised. They're like, what? You can actually, you like are totally good at speaking. I totally think that you are an extroverted individual. No, I like was never that kind of person, but debate really did change my life, as cheesy as that might sound, right? So I think the bottom line that I want to get across here is that yes, debate can give you all sorts of benefits in terms of your academic life and really expand your horizons, change the way that you view the world and the information around it. But it also really does give you the opportunity to step out of your comfort zone and gain a lot of personal benefit from that. And so debate really does have a special place in my heart for that reason. And I think that a lot of coaches feel the exact same way. And this is the sort of love for the activity that we want to foster within our students. And so this sort of goal sort of brings me to the stuff I want to talk about with the tournaments that we host at UBC for our students. And so I think, like some of our coaches have mentioned, VDA attends a wide variety of different tournaments all over the place. But we also consistently attend the ones that are hosted at UBC. And so with UBC Debate Society, we host multiple high school tournaments throughout the year. So there's one that happens in the fall, one in the spring, one in the summer. And essentially, like our goals at this tournament, we have a couple of different goals. Firstly, we want to provide a really safe environment for students to be able to test the skills that they have been learning in whatever classes they've been attending through competition and through giving competitive speeches, and also for them to be able to meet new people, right? And so we have students from all different levels that attend these tournaments, but every student is able to gain some sort of benefit from this. I think it's really, tournaments are a very unique, concentrated experience to be able to test the skills that you've been learning, because it's one thing to be a student in class, hearing a lecture from your coach or giving a practice speech towards them. It's another thing to actually attend a tournament and be able to give that sort of speech to other people that you're competing against, receive real feedback from judges, get scores, and get potentially certain awards for the skills that you are testing out, right? And so I think any coach will tell you that they can very vividly remember their first tournament experience, because it really is a unique sort of environment and a unique event for students. One of our other goals in terms of the tournaments we host at UBC is to just generally foster a love of debate within the Lower Mainland area. Like I said, tournaments are a unique experience, also because it really, I think, strengthens the relationship that you have with debate. When I first joined the club, I was really into it. I did enjoy the sport, but I think my relationship really did change after the first tournament that I attended, because it is kind of an intense experience, but intense in a good way. You spend an entire weekend with like-minded individuals, kind of like what I talked about before, and it really underscores the relationship that you have with debate and gives you an opportunity to get real feedback for the skills that you've been practicing for potentially months on end. And so I think that one point that I really want to underscore is that VDA is a really good environment to be able to get to that point of attending different tournaments, because of the way that the curriculum at VDA is structured. I think it does a really good job of preparing you to be able to attend these sorts of events, and it really caters the curriculum to each student's individualized levels and needs for whatever it is that your student is going to come into the class with. And so I think at the end of the day, I'm going to try and wrap things up so it's not too long, but at the end of the day, I think that debate will give you numerous sorts of benefits. I think that VDA is totally the way to go if you're looking to get into it. So yeah, thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, Evelyn. 好，刚刚那个 Evelyn 教练也跟我们分享很多他的个人经历，应该大家刚刚看他的那个短讲，应该看不出来他以前是个非常害羞的孩子。好，那他在辩论里面得到了非常多，那其实更多的是人与人的互动嘛。你在辩论的过程当中会遇到更多跟你同价值观的人，然后呢，像是你的队友或者是可敬的对手，在这一些交互影响之下呢，你会更加建立自己的自信心，然后呢，跨出自己的舒适圈。那刚刚也从那个辩论赛的 那个角度切入了辩论为什么会很重要。参加辩论赛呢，其实跟上课不太一样，我们往往都会鼓励学生说，你在课堂上学习了非常长的时间，一定要参加辩论赛，因为在辩论赛之中，你会得到裁判的回馈，那你可能会跟对手直接对上，你可以知道说自己在课堂上有哪些方面的不足，你也可以知道说自己在课堂上已经掌握了哪些已经做得非常好的优点。所以呢，每个孩子其实几乎参加过辩论赛之后都会蜕变，慢慢的蜕变。那其实我们也非常鼓励学生参加辩论赛，像是 UBC 就有分像是秋季赛啊、春季赛啊这些，我们都非常鼓励学生去那边磨练，因为呢，不断的蜕变可以让你就是得到你最终想要成长的那个目标这样子。好，非常谢谢 Evelyn。那我们再来看一下最后一位教练。欢迎一下 Tina。Tina 原本是我们的学生，然后呢，因为真的学习的非常认真，然后也是不断的加强自己的能力，所以现在已经是独当一面的教练了。那我们就来欢迎 Tina 分享一下她的经验。
Hi everyone, I'm Tina, and I've been debating for around 4 years since I was in grade 9, and I became a coach I think 2 or 3 years ago. So I think what I'll talk about, I'll mostly focus on my high school debate experience because that's something I don't think any of the coaches talked about before. So when I first joined, I joined because my mom forced me to, just like some of you may force your children to do as well. But obviously I'm very grateful that she pushed me to do that because it ended up giving me a lot of gains that I'll talk about in the next few minutes. So the first thing I want to talk about is the community and network. So this has already been touched on, so I won't say anything more except just who wouldn't want to be surrounded by a community of really intelligent, overachieving sometimes and accomplished kids, right? Everybody should want that. I think the main difference between having a debate network is it's so visible, the difference, how it's very visible because the conversations I was having with my debate friends was so different from the ones I was having with my school friends. The conversations I was having with people that I debated with were so much more meaningful and so much more profound, I guess, and it helped me learn a lot more. So I think people in debate motivate you. You learn from them as much as you learn from your coaches, I think. Not to understate the importance of coaches, but the people you debate with are also huge learning opportunities, as weird as that sounds. And also, not only did I meet other debaters who I learned a lot from, the coaches and also who are now my coworkers were also tremendously helpful. A lot of the coaches at VDA actually helped me a lot with my university application. I think 3 or 4 of them edited my UBC personal profile, so that was extremely helpful. Evelyn also gave me a lot of really good advice when I was debating whether or not, well, not debating, when I was trying to decide whether to attend UBC or another university. I asked her a lot of questions about what her UBC experience was like, and her insight really helped me solidify my decision to go to UBC. So I think knowing a lot of people who are a part of the UBC Debate Society, who are going into majors that you might be interested in studying, is super helpful and really important network to have. The other thing, the academic complement, again, I think every coach has already talked a great deal about this, but when I was in high school, as soon as I started debate, basically all of my teachers noticed a huge difference because I went from being just another student to the student in the class who the teachers could always rely on to contribute something to the discussion. And I think being one of those students made my high school experience better because I was kind of the favorite in the class, but that's not important. What was important was that I felt so much more capable of participating in the discussion and not just kind of listening to what the teacher had to say and other students, which is fine, but it's way more interesting when you can actually put yourself in the class. And then the last one, this is the one I kind of want to focus on because when I started debating in high school in my senior year, I was practically the only competitive debater at my school, so no one else really debated or even knew about it. And it was hard for me to find partners to go to school clubs with. It was hard for me to participate in debate because there were so many barriers. Where private schools had coaches that were dedicated to training students and people who could afford to go to debate class and a huge debate club, I basically started out from ground zero trying to build some kind of debate club at my school. And I basically tried to recruit as many people as possible, you know, begged them to come to meetings, explained what it is, and explained like why it's so beneficial. And I ended up like recruiting a fair amount of kids for my club. I brought them to tournaments. I organized everything basically by myself because I was the only person at the school who cared about this. And I tried so hard to get funding from the school board, who was very reluctant because like they didn't know what this was or why it was so good for students. But I used my debate skills and I convinced them. And I was eventually able to basically not break a record, but create like a legacy for the school, because we went to regionals in this year in February, and we were the first Fleetwood Park team to get any kind of award at the regional context. And we ended up sending teams to provincials, which had never happened before for our school. So I think this goes to show that debate isn't just like something to like help you get better at grades or whatever. It also allows you to become a leader in your community, even if before there aren't many like debate opportunities, which there might not be if you do attend a public school. You can create those opportunities and like create something for your school. Because now, even though I'm graduating, I'm handing down the debate club to kids I trained at the school, and they're going to continue that and like continue putting my school on the debate scene. And I think that's something my like principals were very happy about. Like when I was leaving, they were like, "Thank you for convincing us to fund the club." Like now we're known for having a good, like strong debate team. So yeah, just taking initiative and like being a leader is something that debate also enables you to do through more ways than one. Next, I'll talk a bit about like VDA and my VDA experience. So I'll start when I was a student there, which is majority of my time at VDA. So the first thing I learned as a student was how to disagree with other people productively. I think a lot of parents are scared to send their kids into debate because they're basically like sending their kids here to learn how to argue with themselves. I would say don't worry about that. Like that shouldn't be a concern, because I think I'm a pretty okay debater, but I've still never been able to win any argument against my mom. So I think the rules are different when it comes to parents. So if you're scared about that, like don't be, you're still gonna win every argument against your kids. But what I did learn was how to have disagreements with other people. Like disagreements are inevitable in life. You're always going to have differing opinions, but what makes a difference in your disagreements is if you're able to articulate your point instead of just talking about your feelings and like why something should be done just because you feel like it. So I think what debate changed in my personality was before I was disagreeing with people, but I wasn't doing it productively, right? I ended up not really resolving any conflicts in my life, and I just kind of like raise my voice whenever I was trying to make a point. But debate taught me that if you want to convince somebody, you have to see from their perspective. You have to use logic, but you also have to use some degree of emotion to appeal to people. And I think that like really smoothed out the edges for me, because I was able to walk into an argument with the intention of coming to some kind of resolution, whereas before I was kind of arguing just for the sake of it. So I think debate makes you an easier person to work with, someone who's more agreeable because you know how to disagree with other people correctly instead of just like yelling at them. So I think that was really important. Also, debate gave me a platform for expression. So I kind of relate to Ash a bit more, where like we're both, I think before even we joined debate, we were both pretty outspoken, pretty expressive and confident. But my issue was that I had like no outlet for that, because yeah, like in schools, you're given chances to participate in discussion, but I think it's just a very different environment. When in debate, you're actively encouraged and you're given a space, literally like 5 minutes or 8 minutes, where all you'll do is build an argument and express yourself. So before, I was always like the loudest person in the room. I was always that person. But in debate, I learned that being that person is a good thing, and I learned how to channel that and use it to my advantage. Whereas before, I was kind of just known as being like expressive and like loud and confident, and I didn't really know what to do with that. But debate gave me a platform where I expressed that in like a positive way and gained stuff from it. So I think that's really important. So even if your kid is not like the shy kid, like there are already kids who are outspoken, I'm sure, who need to be told not to speak up, but like rather to quiet down sometimes. I think those kids are just as good for debate as the kids who are shyer and who are quieter. So I think there's something in it for everybody. Okay, now I'll talk about like what VDA was like for me as a coach. So I think I was probably the youngest coach in my year to have been hired. I was hired before like some of the other students. So when I interned, I was in grade 10, I want to say, going into grade 11. So I was the youngest coach at the time. And I remember like not really knowing how to do anything. I was like, oh my God, why did they hire me? Like, I don't know how to like lead a class. I'm barely being like working on being a student in a classroom myself. But I think being a coach really trained me to demand attention in a room, to work with kids, to understand and see from the perspective of other people, which you learn in debate as well as coaching. And it also allowed me to learn from the students themselves, because even though I am a teacher, I feel like I learn from the students just as much as they learn from me, because you are learning how to give feedback, you are learning how to lead a class, right? And those skills, like no one else at my age really got to practice those skills because they had jobs in like maybe other sectors like food or hospitality. Those jobs are good too. They help you learn other skills, but I think debate or working in debate was unique because it allowed me to be in like a position that not many other people my age was in, right? So again, it's that leadership piece. You become a leader when you become a debate coach and a debater. And I think I also learned a lot from the coaches that I had, because like the coaches really take you through the process of coaching when you are a student. They will be very patient with you, explain everything to you, even if you don't understand the first time around. And that really instilled in me the idea of patience, right? I'm not usually a very patient person, but being a coach has really taught me that something I understand immediately may not be something other people can get, even when I explain it to them multiple times. So I have to find creative ways to get stuff through to them. But when you do eventually, it's like very satisfying for all parties involved. So that was very gratifying. Also, when I was at VDA as a student, I remember like almost every class would run late a little bit because coaches were so adamant on helping you and making sure you get all the feedback you need to be better, that they wouldn't end class on time because they had so much to say and so much to tell you. So I think that just goes to show like how dedicated these coaches are and how they are willing to take that extra step, because not every debate academy is going to allow classes to run late. Some classes, even if the coaches are not done speaking, they'll just end the class. But VDA really like goes the extra mile and makes sure you get what you need from the coaches. And then last, I'll just conclude by talking about how I've seen others benefit. So for a lot of kids, it is about overcoming shyness, especially those who didn't have English as their first language. I didn't have English as my first language. I immigrated here. I spoke Mandarin, and I only knew like a few words in English, but doing debate helped me expand my vocabulary. I think it's like a huge part of it, because you learn to say words that wouldn't necessarily come up in daily conversation, but are pretty important to know. So that's one part of it. Also, just like being able to speak in a crowded room, which is a skill I think every person on the planet needs, right? No matter what job you're planning to go to. And it's also about bringing out strengths. So in my situation, it wasn't necessarily overcoming my shyness because I didn't have much of that, but rather bringing out the confidence in me. Like I talked about this in the video, but it's about like helping me or teaching me how to channel the confidence I already had and be more assertive in public settings, but be like confident about that and be happy that I have this strength, and be okay and comfortable with using it. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say. You guys can ask me questions later in the Q&A, but yeah, that's it for me.
Okay, thank you very much, Tina. 好，刚刚 Tina 其实分享了一些我们不少学生遇到的事情，例如呢被家长逼来上辩论，然后呢英语又不是第一个他们的母语嘛，所以一开始加入的时候非常紧张。可是你看他像现在从我们学生这样慢慢发展，他培养出了解决问题的能力，领导班级的能力，所以原本他自己的学校只有他一个人就是在做辩论这项活动，但是他这样子拓展出去，传承给下一届的学弟妹，所以现在他们学校其实已经有非常强的辩论队伍。我觉得这个其实是 VDA 一个很重要的理念，就是我们不只培养好学生，我们也把好学生培养成好的教练，所以我们就很高兴说这个辩论 可以带给他这么大的转变啊，还有那个申请学校上面的帮助等等。那像他刚刚提到的，他的同事也就是 VDA 其他教练，其实也在那个大学申请上给了他很多建议。所以其实辩论你可以遇得到非常多生命中的贵人，或者是你身边就是跟你志同道合的朋友。我们曾经有家长就是跟我说，孩子原本呢跟他聊天的内容都是今天发生什么事，一开始学辩论之后，孩子反而跟妈妈说，你今天可以看一下美国的新闻吗？我等一下要跟你讨论。所以整个讨论的那个主题完全就不一样。那个妈妈自己当然也很惊喜，心中当然也会担心说，那会不会哪一天孩子用辩论把我给辩倒了？但就像刚刚 Tina 教练说的，放心，就是面对父母，孩子一样就是还是孩子的角色啦，所以他们还是会专注在学术辩论上面，提升自己的部分。好，非常谢谢 Tina 给我们的分享。好，那以上都是我们几位辩论教练的一些人生的故事啊，那还有给学生的一些建议。那接下来呢，我们要来欢迎的是我们的经理，我们的经理Zoe老师，他是非常资深的阅读写作的教师。那等一下他会跟我们分享一下，在疫情之下呢，我们的学院该如何去保持就是学生继续学习的顺畅性，然后还有专业性。那让我们来欢迎Zoe老师。Hi Zoe. Could you please share some experience with us? You there?
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Thanks for hanging out with us. If you are interested in debate, then as you can tell, we have amazing coaches. We have people who really care about the students, who care about each other, and who've really worked very hard to build a community, not just a debate community, but also a VDA community. And that really is reflected in our students and their participation as they move through the different levels. It's something that we're very proud to be able to continue to foster within the program. The way that my job works is very likely you're going to see me no matter what kind of class you want to talk about. I do help to run the debate program as the manager, but I also run our reading and writing program. And so today I'm going to talk mostly about the reading and writing program. So with our reading and writing program that we have, Vancouver Writing Academy, we have two teachers who work full-time, 5 to 6 days a week, each of us. And very similarly to the coaches, we really like teaching. So I myself teach full-time as well. And my background is in linguistics. So I have my bachelor's degree from SFU in linguistics, which is the science of language. Language is something that I find deeply fascinating. I read the dictionary in grade 4. I was that kid. And while I was not someone who was confident speaking in a room, I was someone who really wanted to learn and I wanted to know things. And I really try to bring that into my classroom. I've been teaching now full-time 8 years, and I've been working with kids 17. So on the reading and writing side, our instructors are a little bit older. We're getting all this white hair. But I do think that the experience that we have in teaching is something that, particularly with writing, with teaching students literary comprehension skills, is something that is really necessary. So our other full-time instructor is Kyle, and he as well has been teaching now full-time, I believe for 6 or 7 years. He's been with us over 4, and his background is in creative writing. He's got both a bachelor's and a master of fine arts in creative writing. So although we have slightly different perspectives in terms of what we're interested in with writing, both of us really have very unique perspectives that I think help to give the kids a different way of looking at language. One of the most crucial aspects of a reading and writing class is making sure that the students are getting targeted feedback, that they're getting the time to be able to discuss and share their ideas to be encouraged to really think critically about what's happening in the classroom, what the passages are discussing, and whatever skills are going to be the topical focus. And our class sizes being so small is one thing that really helps this to take place. We, in the reading and writing program, never have more than 6 students, whether it's online or in person. And so every single student has the opportunity to get really individualized attention and feedback. Another really crucial aspect of reading and writing is making sure that the students are going to be in a class with peers who are the same level. It's not just about the same age in an academic format, it's also about whether they have the same maturity and whether they have the same ability in terms of their skills. And so what we do for new students is actually have every single new student who comes to us complete a 1-hour diagnostic test. And as a result of this, we are very quickly able to look at their scores and recommend classes that are not only suitable for them because of what they want and what they want to learn and what you as their parents want them to learn, but also that are going to put them in a class with another group of students who are going to be at the same level. They're going to be the same maturity, they're going to be the same age, and so they're going to be able to form this sort of classroom dynamic that's going to make their experience a lot more fun. The way our classes work, they do come to class once a week during the regular terms. It's a 2-hour-long session, and they get homework emails at the end of every single class that gets sent to you and to them. And this really makes sure that the homework isn't going missing, but also so that you have an idea of what they're learning in class, just so that you can kind of make sure that you're comfortable with what they're learning and that what they're learning is something that is going to be useful in their academic career. When they submit their homework, it all gets done online. And that allows us to continually draft and redraft their assignments so that they can actually complete up to 3 drafts per homework assignment. And when they are doing these revisions, they do it from a series of feedback, comments, and suggestions that we make online through the Google Docs. And so they're able to look at these and receive really individualized attention about their specific areas of weakness and get constructive feedback that's just for them, rather than being in a classroom setting where, you know, I might be talking to one person and 5 other people are staring at the ceiling. That doesn't happen in our classes. We do have 3 different types of classes. We've got reading comprehension, which is going to largely focus on looking at reading passages, learning new vocabulary, understanding what the passages are really talking about, and learning new ways to do analysis. And so a lot of the focus in these classes is critical thinking, is looking at not just that sort of top level understanding of the passage, but really getting into it and really digging deep and thinking about, are there other ways this could be understood? The second type of class that we have is just reading and writing. And so we do some of that reading still, but we also work on writing skills as well. And so the load for that tends to be more equal. It's more 50% reading and 50% writing. With the reading passages that we're doing, they are generally shorter passages. And when I say short, it's 20 pages or less a week. So they're not super short, but we don't usually do novels. And that's because we do find that, same as in the school system, if you're doing a novel with students in a class and they fall behind, if they've got a swim meet or they're sick, they're not able to do the homework that week, catching up is really overwhelming. And, you know, especially right now with what's going on in the world, we don't really want to be adding to that stress load. And so instead, what we're doing is every single week we have a different passage. And so we are going to still send them that homework. And if they're able to, even if they've missed the class, they do have the opportunity to complete it. But if they don't have time, they come to the class next week and they're not going to feel lost. They're not going to be confused about what's going on. The writing skills that we focus on really vary depending on what the students need. And so the teacher looks at the student levels, who they are, what they're interested in, how old are they, what are they capable of, and what are their weaknesses, and really tailor our lesson plan specifically to who these students are. And so that flexibility, I think, is the best thing that we do. I think that it has more value than almost anything else. We do not have a set curriculum, and I think that that's something that's actually really important, because we need to be able to change what we're teaching depending on who our students are and what they need, and that's what we do. So sometimes we're going to do academic essay writing. Sometimes we're going to have a lesson, and for 2 hours we're going to do nothing but grammar, and we're going to talk about run-on sentences. In other classes, we might be reading Shakespeare or looking at literary essays or poems. Sometimes I make my students read newspaper articles and write them. And all of these different types of tasks are going to focus on really crucial skills that are going to be really helpful later on in their academic careers. So with all of these different types of classes, no matter what type of class it is, we really work very hard to make sure that what we're teaching is going to be really useful to the students. And that's because this focus on critical thinking and analysis is something that happens in debate, and it also happens in reading. It's something that students need to be able to do for literacy exams in grade 10 and 12, for the SAT, for college entrance and admissions, and just for job interviews. In the summer camps, actually, in our writing workshop, I had a lesson where we looked at how to write cover letters. These are skills that are really important to students that they're not necessarily getting elsewhere, that are still going to be something that they need to have. And so we really work to make sure that what we're doing is going to be good for them. So yeah. The other thing that does happen sometimes is that we do have students who come in as brand new students or as brand new to the reading and writing side, and I see every single diagnostic test. And immediately, having not picked up a pen, having not started scoring, I know who's a reader and I know who's done debate. It is immediately very, very clear. And I think on the debate side as well, there are going to be times when there's students come in, and the coaches as well in the debate classes are going to know who's done an essay writing class. There are specific skills that translate really well to either side. And it makes a difference in terms of how they argue, in terms of how they present their information, whether it's spoken or written. And so if students take both debate and reading and writing, they not only become better debaters who are good at delivering their ideas verbally and logically, but they also become really good writers who are able to excel in literary analysis and style that's going to be a little bit different than what's needed for debate. I think one of the things that Kyle and I really work hard to do in the reading and writing side, but also the debate coaches really work for as well, is to encourage our students to have opinions. A lot of the time, as we're growing up, we get stuck in ourselves. Humans in general are a little bit selfish, and it's all about me and it's all about us. And having a teacher, having a community, whether it's debate or in the reading and writing, whether it's a teacher in a class or a group of people that you know with the same interests, who really encourage you to step outside of yourself and to have opinions, to care about the world, and be involved in the community is something that I think is really, really incredible. I didn't do debate in high school, and caring about politics and world knowledge was something that I did a little bit of, but not anywhere near to the extent that our university debate coaches do. And I think it's something that is really, really amazing. It's something that we need in the world in general, because we need people who care. That's how change gets made. And I think that debaters are people who really make that happen. And as well, people who get involved in our higher level academic classes really get pushed in very similar ways. And so kind of my last note here is that unfortunately right now people are stressed. It's kind of a scary time in the world. Things are happening. We don't know what the future is going to look like. And it's affecting our schools as well. It's affecting the class systems, the Ministry of Education, how students are being tested and graded. And so with the education system kind of suffering right now as a result of COVID, one of the things that really working to keep going strong is our own programs. Our class quality has always been high, and it continues to be really high, so that even if students maybe are not going to be receiving the most worthwhile educational experience through schools, they're still going to get it with us. And you know, that's something that I think is really has a lot of value as well. I think that's everything for me.
Okay, thank you, Zoe. 好，那刚刚 Zoe 老师跟我们分享了，我们在阅读写作课有哪一些不同的项目跟类别。那基本上呢，不管是辩论还是写作，我们都是以学生本位来设计课程的。那可能是用单元制的方式来帮助学生挑选最适合他们的教材。所以呢，其实像这些不管是辩论还是写作，我们都期望说学生可以在里面找到一样自己看世界的方式。那这个不仅是帮助他们在成绩上面提升，在求职上面会有一些优势，这也帮助他们在世界里面找到自己的定位，可以更踏实的生活在这个世界，可以用不同的眼光，然后用自己的角度切入。好，那非常感谢以上几位讲者的分享。那介绍完了我们的教练以及我们的经理之后呢，进入我们的 Q&A 时间。现在如果呢您有任何针对辩论啊、写作啊，或者是我们课程相关的问题，您可以打开麦克风，用英文直接询问，或者是呢如果想用中文的话，也可以直接在那个 Sharon 这边打下你的问题，我们可以帮您翻译来询问教练。好。现在有问题可以提出，那如果您不好意思在这边直接问的话呢，也可以直接扫这边的二维码，这是我们办公室的微信，或者是也可以在刚刚大家加入的群组里面事后询问也可以。好，请问有人有任何的问题吗？
我们经常收到的问题是孩子几岁学辩论比较好，所以我们可以请出 Bryan 老师给我们讲一下。So what is a good age to start debate? This is something we always receive from parents. So maybe Bryan, you can talk a little bit more about it, why we start at grade 4 and what kind of skills we teach young students.
Yeah, so I think that debate, as you probably think of it as a tournament sort of context, that's most developmentally appropriate for anywhere from middle school, grade 6, depending on the maturity of the student. It can be grade 6 and up, or it could be 7 up, it could be 8 up, 9 up. It depends on what at what level somebody's able to engage in something and be able to attend to the content for an extended amount of time to complete a debate. It also requires some emotional maturity to do a debate as we think of debate. So it does require the ability to check one's emotions, which is another thing that we do train, is that whenever somebody is disagreeing with you, how do you disagree without being disagreeable yourself? I think Ash mentioned that as well. And so, there is an element of learning to emotionally regulate that I think doesn't always apply to younger students. That said, the speech components and the ability to stand up, to be able to organize a position, organize a thought, be able to justify that thought, what evidence supports it, what are the ideas that go together with that argument or that idea, and how do you tell that in a way that it's telling a story that creates an argument, that can be taught very early on. So some of the things that would be at the 4th to 5th grade level that I think are developmentally appropriate are learning how to stand up and be confident. What does it mean to give a speech? How does that differ from talking to your friends? So I know, like, whenever I'm teaching younger kids, one of the first things I always teach is how to stand up and get room. And so we do this helicopter where everybody has to get enough space where they can swing their arms in a 360 and give a speech. And so younger students love getting up and starting their speech by spinning around. So like with younger kids, that's more appropriate. So I think there's a level of adjusting and accommodating different ages that has to happen for younger kids, because clearly they're not going to get up and be able to deliver an 8-minute full case with everything cited. So that's not what's trained at the early ages. At the early ages, it's about developing confidence, about thinking organizationally about your speech. How many points do you need? How do you create an engaging hook so that the audience wants to listen? How do you use your voice to emphasize points and speak rhetorically and persuasively, as opposed to just sitting there and sort of talking? So it's teaching those things at the 4th and 5th grade level. At the middle school level, it's starting to learn what is an argument, what is an impact, how do you start to put those things together into a story that helps tell a really clear and persuasive reason that we need to change something or not change something. So that's kind of the middle years, the 6th to 8th grade range. And then once students are getting into high school, they start learning more advanced ideas that we probably think of as debate. But it's really a developmental path. So it's starting off with speech, it's starting off with organization and organizing communication. Middle ages are more structure and argument orientation. Beginnings of research happen there. And then at high school level, it's the more advanced research skills, the more advanced rhetorical skills that they need to be able to communicate something that's really complex, like international relations or technology. It's a big technological change, or any of the much bigger topics. So I think 4th grade, so point being, in short, if you do have a 4th grade or 5th grade child and you're thinking, well, they're not old enough for debate, it's not 12th grade year of high school debate. It's starting off with the foundational skills that they need to be able to learn how to communicate, write, read, and do the things that are the building blocks of more advanced skills. So I think that's the idea that we have in our head at VDA is that we want to meet every student where it's developmentally appropriate to build essential skills for their academic and their debate careers.
Thank you so much for sharing, Bryan. 我们也有学生10岁就参加我们的辩论课程，然后现在也成长成非常厉害的辩论选手。就是年轻的小朋友，大家总是觉得他们不能去辩论，没有那么多的知识，但是就是因为这样，他们来参加课程，他们会学到非常多的知识去帮助他们成长，然后从小的时候就有思辨的能力。所以说我们的课程是最小的孩子是从4年级开始上的。然后另一个我们经常收到的问题是，孩子必须要去参加比赛才能成为一个很好的辩手嘛，才能从辩论里，取得一些，就是孩子必须参加比赛才能获得这些能力吗？我们也可以请 Bryan 给我们回答一下这个问题。So another question we always receive is about, do students have to compete at tournament to benefit from debate? I think the answer is no. Bryan, maybe you can share more about this.
Yes, I think it totally depends on the student. I enjoy tournaments, and I think any of the coaches that spoke today enjoy tournaments because it's a chance for you to meet people, to be social, and especially right now being stuck at home for all of us, it's a good chance to actually see friends and make friends. So it's not essential. That said, I think that what you would want to seek out if you don't want to compete at the tournament level is seek out opportunities to communicate, like if it's an in-house tournament, for example, something where if the issue is that they aren't quite there and don't feel like they're confident enough to compete, then I would say seek out smaller opportunities to compete, or seek out opportunities to do speech. Competitive speech is actually another very big area, especially in the States, where there's lots of opportunities to give speeches and to do it in front of an audience that you don't know, in order to sort of test your skills and to practice. Because I think it really is a practice. It's developing our own ability to communicate. So I would say finding opportunities that fit their interests is the only goal that we have. If the student's interest is not to be, tournament competitive, that's great. Because you're still going to learn the skills, you're still going to be working on the same academic skills as you would in any other debate class.
Thank you, bro.
So it's very much about building the curriculum and the opportunities around the student, not the other way around.
Thank you, Bryan.